All right, good morning again, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. This morning, with our tradition of the national anthem, we're going to ask you here, the last time we're doing it, to join in singing with our lovely and talented Starfield. So please, those of you who are able, stand for the presentation of the colors and welcome the Orange County Sheriff's Office Color Guard.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Please join me in some applause for our pianist, St. John, and our board member, Starfields. Thank you. All righty, now it's fun time. You guys ready for fun? Or are you ready for a nap? Okay, so my name is Jeremy Countryman. I am the Vice President of the Family Cafe. Thanks for coming down here for our Sunday keynote. I'm a little tired because I stayed up late watching the New York Knicks win the NBA title. That's it. All right. So, as you know, today's our final keynote, who I will be introducing momentarily, and then after that, we're going to jump into our door prizes. So, everybody should have a door prize ticket you got when you came in. If you don't worry too much about it. We'll make sure you have one before we get underway with that. So, it's now my great honor and pleasure to welcome to the stage Dr. Kevin Spencer. I have his entire bio here from the program in front of me. But I talked to him this morning and I said, do you want a long introduction with your whole bio or a short one? And he said a short one. So I'm just going to tell you a couple things. He's been here the entire weekend. I met him on Friday. It's always nice when somebody who's going to be speaking at the event engages with the event the whole time. And so what Dr. Spencer's about is, he's somebody who has expertise in the therapeutic value of magic and illusion for people with disabilities. So I could just tell, watching him, walking around the event, interacting with the attendees, that this is somebody who gets it, it can listen to people and engage with people meet them on their level. And so, I could tell from the way he was speaking with everybody throughout the last 3 days that he's going to be an amazing keynote because he knows what we're about. and he knows how to connect with people. So with that, it's my pleasure to welcome to the stage Dr. Kevin Spencer.
Appreciate it. How is everybody? Good. You know, I tried to make it around and speak to as many people as I could before we came in. This has been an amazing last few days. This has just been really, really incredible. I'm so excited to be here and to be your last speaker. We're going to go out on a little bit of fun. Yes? Yeah? So before we get started, you know what? I've been doing magic for a long time. Started when I was a little kid with one of those magic sets that my mom and dad got me for Christmas. I learned all those little tricks, carried them to elementary school and junior high school with me, and then I actually worked my way through college doing magic shows. I know. And one of the first things I had to learn was the difference between what's real and what's not real. Reality and illusion. So before we get started here today, I'm going to take a moment just to share with all of you folks the difference between reality and illusion as it relates to magic. So before the show, I stopped by the front desk at the hotel, and I picked up a copy of the Orlando Sentinel. Anybody get this? No. I thought somehow this might generate thunderous rounds of applause. Now, obviously, this is not the entire paper. This is just one section of the paper. Anybody had a chance to look at the Orlando Sentinel? No. Well, I tell you what we're going to do. I am going to thumb through it very quickly. I'm going to point out some things I want all of you to remember. They'll be important a little bit later on, all right? Who knows? Maybe by the time we're done with this, some of you will want a subscription. Back page. Miracle Ear, the sounds of summer. Who's going to remember that for me? You got it? All right, sounds of summer. Next page, we have kitchens. Who's got that for me? Who's going to remember kitchens? All right. Next page, the weather map. Who's got the weather? Oh, I got these guys here in the weather. Let's see what we have going on in the middle. Oh, the comics. That is the best page of every newspaper in America right there. All right. Who's going to remember the comics? You're all going to remember the comics, all right. This page, we just have some pretty houses. Who's going to remember that? Pretty houses? Good. Next page, we have patio furniture. Patio furniture, all right. We've got nothing. What is there? There's a story about the museum. Who's going to remember the museum for me? Museum. All right, Nick, you got that? And of course, the front page is the Orlando Sentinel. This is reality. You don't get any more real than the Orlando Sentinel. All right? I want some of you are debating that on me here just a little bit. All right. I want all of you to say that with me one time. This is what? Reality. One more time. This is what? Reality. It is important that you remember that. Because what I'm about to do to the newspaper is not real. This is a figment of your imagination. In magic, we call this creating an illusion. Watch, I'll show you what I mean. It's actually easier for me to do this than it is for me to try and explain this to people. Some of you, not all of you, I know. But some of you right now think you are seeing me tear this newspaper into pieces. Some of you actually think you see torn up pages of the newspaper here in my hand. But the newspaper is what? Reality. Somebody over here said torn. The newspaper is reality. Tearing the newspaper is an illusion. I've confused everybody at this point. I think the thing that gets people the most about this, because a lot of times folks come up to me after the show and they say, Kevin, we know you tore the newspaper up because we heard it making ripping noises into the microphone. We saw torn up pages of the newspaper there in your hand. Well, this is where I need all of you to please talk to me one more time. If in fact the newspaper is reality, and if in fact tearing the newspaper is an illusion, I should be holding here in my hand not one torn up, ripped up newspaper at all, but one very, very solid Orlando Sentinel. All right, let's take a look at it one more time. Back page, The Sounds of Summer. Who can tell me what's on the next page? Kitchens, very good. Weather, who can tell me what's on the next page? What is it? The comics, The Pretty House. What's on the next page? What is it? Patio furniture, good. We've got the museum, and then of course the front page is the Orlando Sentinel. This is the difference between reality and illusion. I hope you like this. Thank you. All right, now I'm going to give somebody a job. Sarah, you're right there on the front row. I'm going to give you a job from right there because the last thing you need to do is be back up on your feet. So I am clinically ADHD, and I don't take medicine. I self-medicate with coffee. Sarah knows that, and she brought me a giant cup of coffee right back here, but it usually takes me about 4 cups to even out. I'm at 2. All right, so I'm going to have the iPad in my hand because this is going to keep me on track so that I don't wander. Sarah, if I put this down for any length of time, you should get my attention because this is only supposed to last till noon. Okay? We don't want it to go any longer than that. So before we get started, I probably should say that while the magic expertise in the room belongs to me, the real expertise in this room belongs to all of you, the families and the self-advocates who live this every single day. I'm here because somewhere along the way, I figured out that magic, the kind that we're going to do today, has something to offer that sometimes ordinary words just can't. And I want to spend our time together over the next little bit showing you exactly what I mean. So a really quick word about where I'm coming from. Let me go back one. I am missing a slide there, but that's okay. Tell you what, I'll just do it this way. Really quick, I'm going to give you a really quick kind of introduction to who I am. So I am a professor at Carlow University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I teach a really fun course on the intersection of art and disability. It's a really, really fun class that started first for special education teachers, and then I got gen ed teachers, and then art therapy, and then art education, and then social work, and then psychology. So I really don't know who I teach anymore, but it's still a lot of fun. I'm an associate professor by special appointment and a research consultant in the occupational therapy program at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, which is great fun. You got a little flyer on a magic camp that we're going to talk about again here in just a little bit. I have a really strange job. I also teach a course at Harvard University. I know, isn't that crazy? I teach a course as a part of their pediatric sedation program, and this is a very much a Harvard course. I'm going to tell you what it's called, and you go, oh. I teach a course on the non-pharmacologic application of magic tricks in pediatric sedation outside of the operating room. I know. Basically, I teach doctors how to do magic tricks. That's what I do. I mean, that's what I do. And then I have this really cool job with the State Department. Now, when a magician starts to work for the State Department, all your friends think you're a spy. Because why would a magician work for the State Department, right? That doesn't make any sense. But here's what happens. Any of our embassies around the world that recognize disability or trauma as a part of their program mission statement, I have an opportunity to go to those countries and work with the organizations that our embassy supports. So it's really, really great fun. I just checked off my 67th country, which is, yeah, kind of crazy. And then probably on the performing side, which is the most thing I think I like the most, is that I'm a professional magician. For 30 years, I have toured the world, almost 40 years, toured the world with a magic show. So somewhere on the planet, every single night, I have had the opportunity to take my audiences on a journey to the brink of the impossible. I did crazy stuff like throw my body through the whirling blades of industrial fans. My wife has been cut in half, I don't know, 30,000 times maybe. I'm not sure she knew that was going to happen when we got married, but I used to walk through walls and read people's minds. It was an absolutely awesome job. I was named 2009 and 2015 International Magician of the Year. Yes, I know. And 6 times Performing Arts Entertainer of the Year. It was a really awesome, awesome job. I retired in 2015. Right after I won International Magician of the Year, I got this awesome phone call from a guy that you may or may not recognize, a guy named David Copperfield. And David called me on the phone. He said, "Congratulations." And I said, "For what?" And he goes, "For winning International Magician of the Year." And I said, "Oh." And he goes, "Oh my gosh, they haven't called you yet." And I said, "No, they haven't called me yet." And he goes, "Well, you got to act surprised." He said, "I wanted to call you because I wanted you to know that I voted for you." And I thought that was pretty cool. Yes. So years ago, there's the slide I was looking for. Somehow I got one. So let me just pump through that one and we'll get to there. Years ago, my wife Cindy, who was going to be here and unfortunately wasn't able to make it, my wife Cindy and I were volunteering at one of our local hospitals, and we were piloting a program that used simple magic tricks as a fun and motivating form of occupational therapy. We were asked to work with 5 stroke patients that summer, which was really cool. So we came in and we were going to teach them these simple little magic tricks. But what we saw happening in that room was not entertainment. It was engagement, it was motivation, it was focus. It was unlike anything that the therapists in that room had seen before. So what we found out is over the next few weeks, we started noticing something else. These patients that were learning magic tricks were getting better. Now, when you've had a stroke, it takes traditionally between 20 and 24 weeks of traditional therapy. What we found is that the director of rehab came up and she said they were hitting really significant markers at 8 weeks and 9 weeks and 10 weeks. And she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "We're just teaching them magic tricks." That's what we were doing. But you know what? You know what they were doing? They were practicing their magic tricks. How many of you have ever been in therapy before? Oh, yeah. So you know what this is like, right? You get that little sheet of paper with all the exercises on it you're supposed to do, and you walk through the front door of your house, and it lands right there on that coffee table. And you don't pick it up again until it's time to go back to therapy, and you pick it up really fast, and you go through the things because you don't want to lie to your therapist and tell them that you didn't do your therapy. Well, what we found out is that all the movements required to do these simple little magic tricks were all the movements required in more traditional forms of therapy. It's just in the end, they had something they could show somebody. They were working on pinching, reaching, grasping, crossing midline, bilateral coordination. And they were working on it over and over and over again because they wanted to show it to somebody. Just ask Mr. Daniels, who said to us, "My grandkids are coming to visit me this weekend. What would I rather say to them? Hey, watch Grandpa put this peg in a board. Or let Grandpa show you a magic trick." And so he was working on those magic tricks over and over and over again. And every time he was working on the magic, he was doing his therapy. What we were watching in that room wasn't just therapy. It was connection. And in the decades since then, it planted a question in my mind. What exactly did I witness in that gym. And here's what I've learned. The art of magic that I love so much has the power to make a difference in the realities in which we live, learn, work, and heal. So that's what we're going to explore a bit this morning. I'm going to do some magic. Some of it will have a point. Some of it's just for fun, because we're all here for a little bit of fun, right? Yes? So can I shoot back over to another one really quick? All right. So I didn't tell you, but I'm not from Florida. I'm from Arkansas. Okay. If you don't know anything about Arkansas, do you guys eat rice? Yes? Arkansas grows 60% of all the rice we eat in the United States. I know, fun fact about Arkansas. And we have the second largest vein of quartz crystal in the world. So, yeah, that's about it for Arkansas. So I get to travel a lot. I mentioned that I've been to a lot of countries. One of my favorite countries in the whole world is Australia. Yeah, the land of kangaroos and koala bears. Everybody speaks English, so I like that. It's a pretty easy country for me to work in. I was performing in a theater in South Australia called the Festival Theater. And after one of our performances there, an older guy met me back at the dressing room with a little box. We talked for a little while, and the more we talked, he reached down, he opened this little box up, and he pulled this thing out. And he said, "Here, take this back to America. They'll love it." I thanked him for it. I wrapped it up, I stuck it in my bag, we talked a little longer, and before he left my dressing room, he quickly scribbled something down on a piece of paper. I placed it with this little stick, and we didn't find any of it again until we got all the way home, started to unpack, and found it buried at the bottom of one of my bags. Now, all it is a stick, an orange stick. It has a white pom-pom, a red pom-pom, a yellow pom-pom, and a blue pom-pom. It has a long string on this side, has a little short string over here. Now, because this guy didn't give me any directions, it took me a little while to figure this out. But this is the way it works. If you pull on the blue pom-pom, the red pom-pom becomes the high pom-pom, and the blue pom-pom becomes the low pom-pom. If you pull on the red pom-pom, the blue pom-pom becomes the high pom-pom, and the red pom-pom becomes the low pom-pom. But you still have a long string on this side and a little short string over here. Now, I wasn't exactly sure what the yellow pom-pom and the white pom-pom were for, but I found out. If you pull on the yellow pom-pom, the red pom-pom becomes the high pom-pom, and the blue pom-pom becomes the low pom-pom. If you pull on the white pom-pom, the blue pom-pom becomes the high pom-pom, and the red pom-pom becomes the low pom-pom. But you still have a long string on this side and a little short string over here. Now, I am watching your faces. I can see the wheels turning inside your heads. Let me explain this to you. As I have come to understand this thing, it's really pretty simple. The red pom-pom is connected to the yellow pom-pom. The yellow pom-pom is connected to the blue pom-pom. The blue pom-pom is connected to the white pom-pom. And the white pom-pom is connected to the red pom-pom. Simple. And it naturally leaves you with a long string on this side and a little short string over here. Now, do you remember the little note that Australian guy wrote to me? This is what it said. No one in Australia had ever seen a long string on this side and a long string on this side. So now my mind kicked into gear, and I found out if you pull on both pom-poms at the same time, you can make a long string on this side and a long string on this side. But the most amazing thing about this little stick is this. I know, right? Actually, at this point in the show, I really like to hear the audience go, ooh. Ah, very nice. I'm not exactly sure why this guy gave this thing to me. I'm not exactly sure how it works. I'm not exactly sure what I'm supposed to do with this. All I know is it's been a regular part of my show ever since, and I hope you've enjoyed the Australian pom-pom. I know that one's going to keep you thinking for a little while, isn't it? So the question I get asked most often, and it's a good question, is how in the world does a magician get involved in disability awareness or special education or occupational therapy? And that's a fair question, because I just told you about the work that we were doing with adults with strokes. And for years, that's all we did is work for adults, because I never worked with kids because I never performed for kids. I've only done one birthday party my entire life, and that was for my nephew when he turned 7, and it was because he begged. Because kids scared me, right? I mean, I'm throwing my body through fans and walking through walls, so my show was a very adult, very sophisticated sort of magic show. Not many kids came to the show. So I never worked with kids. But almost 2 decades into my work, I was booked at a performing arts center in Miami. And they had a donor who wanted to link the arts with medicine. And the director of that venue knew that I did that sort of work. So I came to Florida and I spent 3 days training the rehab team, the occupational therapist, the physical therapist, and the speech therapist, on how to use magic tricks as a therapeutic intervention. We had so much fun. After the last day, the director of rehab came to me and they said, could you model this for our therapists so they would know how to do this in practice? I said, sure. So they took me into a room and I walked through the door and there was a kid. This little boy was sitting in front of me in the room. And I looked at this little kid, and I turned around, and I walked out of the room. And I looked at the head of therapy, and I said, that's a kid. And she said, yes, we're a pediatric rehab center. And I went, totally missed that in the title. Yeah. I had never worked with kids before, but I knew I had a research-based protocol, so I thought, I can do this. So I walked back into the room. And sitting in front of me was this little guy, Thomas. So let me set the stage for you for just a minute. Thomas is sitting in front of me. Behind Thomas is his occupational therapist and his speech therapist. And sitting behind me is Thomas's dad. So I bring out my very first trick. And I do it, and I get nothing. Thomas doesn't go, wow. He doesn't smile. He doesn't laugh. Thomas just looks at me. And then he very slowly leaned into me until his nose was almost touching my nose. And he turned his head, and he sat back down. And I was thinking to myself, what was that? Actually, what I was thinking to myself was, this is why I don't work with children. But I couldn't figure out what that was. So I thought, all right, let me reach for a different trick. And before I reached for the different trick, Thomas looked at me and he said, wait, can I learn that? I said, sure. So I gave Thomas a piece of rope and he started asking me questions. How do I hold my hands? How do I cross my arms? So the whole idea with this trick is you make a knot magically appear in the middle of the rope. And when Thomas did the moves and the knot appeared in the middle of the rope, he just started to laugh. And he goes, again. And I said, again. So he untied the knot and he said, what do I do with my hands? Well, how do I cross my arms? And he made the knot appear again and he started to laugh and he goes, again. I said, again. So then we started making the knot appear in different places on the rope. And after he'd done that a few times, I brought out the second trick, which is one of my favorites. And when I performed this one, he just started to laugh. And he said, I can learn? I said, you can learn. So I gave him a piece of paper and a couple of paper clips, and he started asking me questions. How do I fold the paper? Where do I put the paper clips? And when he was successful, he just started to laugh. And he said, again. And he did it again. So after about 20 minutes, Thomas learned 2 really great magic tricks. He stood up, he very awkwardly slapped me a high five as he left the room with his occupational therapist. And I sat there trying to figure out what had just happened, because it was my first experience with a child. And you know how you get in that space where you're just kind of not aware of what's going around you? It's where I was. And I'm thinking this through. And as I started to come back, I realized that I could hear Thomas's dad behind me. And he was crying. And I stood up, and as I turned around, Thomas's dad just grabbed me, and he gave me an enormous hug. And he said, "That's the first time I've ever heard my son speak." And that was the first time I ever heard the word autism. And that experience changed my life as a performer. Now, clearly, a magic trick didn't magically give Thomas speech. Thomas had language. What it did is it motivated Thomas to use the words that he had. I had something that Thomas wanted to learn, a magic trick. And so the only way he could learn that trick was to engage with me, to ask me questions. Researchers call that motivation, right? We all are very familiar with the motivation. Thomas wanted to learn the trick. In order to learn the trick, he had to work with me. Now, I've had that same experience dozens of times over the last 20 years, all across the country. I can't tell you the number of times I've walked into a classroom with a teacher. Sadly, I was in a school not long ago in Flint, Michigan, and I was going to work with a self-contained classroom of kids on the autism spectrum. And teachers don't always read my bio. They just think a magician is coming to the class, So I knocked on the door to go in this classroom, and the teacher slid out the door really quickly, and she looked at me and she goes, "You're the magician." And I went, "Yes." And she said, "Okay, let me tell you about my kids." I said, "Okay." She said, "All of my kids are on the autism spectrum." And then she proceeded to tell me what that meant. I said, "Okay." And she goes, "And this is a self-contained classroom." And then she told me what that meant. And then she said, "And all of my kids are nonverbal." And then she told me what that meant. And then she said to me the saddest question I've ever been asked. She said, "Do you still want to come in?" And I went, "Yes." And I walked in the room, and I had this big bouquet of yellow feather flowers. And I walked in the room with this big bouquet of flowers and my magic box, and this little boy sitting on the front row looks at me and he goes, "Yellow." And I quickly looked at the teacher like, what was that? So the whole trick is that they're going to pick the flower off and drop it in a bag, pick them off and drop it. So we're working on fine motor, picking them off, dropping them in the bag. And when they've picked all the yellow flowers, now they push reblooms into purple flowers and orange flowers. And this little girl goes, "Orange," and this little boy goes, "Purple." And I'm thinking, these kids are not nonverbal. This is not a nonverbal classroom. I believe our children, our adults, are capable of so much more than what we think. And maybe they don't always understand how to tell us that. Maybe they're not motivated how to tell us that. Maybe we haven't yet learned how to listen to what it is that they're trying to say to us. But here's something that I think is really important that people don't fully appreciate. Magic is the only art form that requires an audience. You can dance for yourself. You can draw for yourself. You can paint for yourself. You can sing for yourself. You cannot do a magic trick for yourself. If you try to, it's just you doing a bunch of goofy moves at the table. It's not a magic trick until you show it to somebody. And in that instant, everything changes and it becomes a magic trick. The art of magic itself is built on connection. It gives the person the ability to do something that their friends can't do, that their siblings can't do, maybe that even the adults in their lives can't do. They have a secret. They have a skill. They have a mastery. And for that person who has spent a lot of their life being told what they can't do, that shift from someone who struggles to someone who amazes is not a small thing. That's a big thing. And it was because of all of those experiences that I went back to school and did my master's degree and then a Ph.D. because I needed to understand what was happening. And in the years since, in one way or another, my quest has been an attempt to continue to answer that question. I think a lot of us allow the people around us to define who we are. If you're a parent in this room, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Somewhere along the way, somebody saw your child and they labeled them, and it stuck. Sometimes for the good, sometimes not for the good. Having been a professional magician for a number of years, I've learned how we perceive things and how we don't perceive things. And I'd like to show you what I mean using these. Who can tell me what these are? Ropes. And how many do I have? 1, 2, 3. All right, Nick, stand up for me, buddy. I'm going to get you to catch this one for me, all right? I'm just going to tell you, Nick, I'm a horrible tosser. All right? You got this? Oh, now see? That's okay. We're going to pass it back to Nick. I'm going to go, let's see. All right, right there. Stand up for me. I'm going to get a little closer to you. Here it comes. Oh, see, I'm still bad even when you're that close. All right, who's going to take this one? Right here? All right. Right there? Here it comes. All right, good. All right, if you have your rope, hold it high where everybody can see it. Good. Good. I want you to grab it by the ends, and I want you to pull on that piece of rope as hard as you can. Show everybody that is a solid piece of rope. Good. Nick, you pulling? You've got the longest one there. Pull on that really hard. You pulling? Everybody, muscles. All right, good. You can relax. Look at the end of the rope. What's wrapped around the end of the rope? What does that look like wrapped around the end of the rope? Tape. It's tape. Why would I put tape on the end of a rope? So it doesn't unravel. That's exactly right. Other than that, is that a pretty good rope, Nick? Oh, yeah. I'm coming to get yours. Thank you. How's yours? Pretty good? Can you run it to me? Thank you. And who's got my last one? You gonna give it a good toss? Ooh, that was pretty good. That was a much better toss than I did. Three cotton pieces of rope. They don't stretch, they don't separate. The ends have been cut and bound with tape so they don't unravel. They're identical in every way. It would be impossible to tell these ropes apart, except for one thing: the length. I knew you would recognize that, because psychologists tell us that our brains are hardwired to look for differences, to identify those differences, and then to label our experiences according to those differences. And then we give them words like long piece of rope, medium piece of rope, short piece of rope. We do that with people too, don't we? We look at the differences, we label the differences, instead of looking at the quality of the rope. And for me, what I love is when I bring the ends together like this, I love the way the ends just look identical. Because if I were to walk in the room right now and just show you this, you might think all these ropes were the same size. They're not, but they look like they could be, don't they? Or we could do this. Soft, white cotton rope. They don't stretch, They don't separate. The ends have been cut and bound with tape so they don't unravel. They're identical in every way. It would be hard to tell these ropes apart. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, that's a pretty good trick. And it's my favorite trick, I'll be honest. But it's more than a trick. It is a reminder for me of how I should look at people, how I should appreciate people. Because just because a kid comes up short, or this one might look average, and this one has been a long time challenge, it doesn't mean that every single day we might not need to assess every day, every hour, every minute, because every judgment becomes a limitation. There's no such thing as average, and you can never underestimate potential. We are all capable of doing more. So here's something that I've come to understand about people who are different. A typical kid might experience one or two really hard experiences in their childhood. A person who's neurodiverse, a person with a disability, somebody who doesn't fit in the box that society has defined for all of us, that person is often experiencing something hard every single day. Being misunderstood, being corrected, being asked to perform in environments that their nervous system wasn't built for, being told sometimes 100 times a year that the way they naturally exist in the world is wrong. That kind of steady, low-grade weight builds up over time. And the parents in the room know exactly what I'm talking about because you've felt that, and caregivers have felt that on behalf of your children in ways that most people will never know. Which is why this matters so much, because the rope doesn't change. The rope was always the same rope. What changes is whether somebody in that kid's life, in that person's life, looks past the length and sees the whole rope for who they are and what they're capable of doing. Some of you are that person for somebody. I've seen it the last few days. I'm here just walking the hallways, this whole group of self-advocates right here, right? That's you guys, yes? You are that for somebody. I guess at some point I should probably say something about what it is that I actually do, because some of you are probably wondering and the rest of you are just too kind to ask. So about 25 years ago, I started putting this program together that we call magic therapy, like music therapy, drama therapy, art therapy, dance therapy, magic therapy, right? And it uses simple magic tricks as a form of occupational and physical therapy. The concept's pretty simple, but the research and the execution have taken us decades. We use simple little magic tricks as a therapeutic and educational intervention in special education classrooms, in hospitals, in rehab centers for people with autism, people with motor challenges, people with ADHD, seniors who are recovering from strokes or managing Parkinson's, for veterans who are holding things that they just can't put into words. There are two ways that magic can be used in a clinical encounter. And I'm just going to apologize for that picture of the magician. I have fought so hard not to look like that. Which is why I've got the hair, right? People always ask me, where's your hat? It's like, dude, if you knew how long it took to get this, you wouldn't put a hat on it either. So there are two ways that we can look at magic. The first, and I think it's really important to be precise about these because they're different. The first is the passive approach. This is where I'm not asking you to do anything. This is what we've done so far. I'm just asking you to watch me do a magic trick, whether that's in a hospital or whether that's in a classroom. And I know that sounds small, but the research says that it isn't. The research that says just watching a magician perform can aid in the reduction of anxiety, build rapport and trust, increase environmental mastery, provide opportunities for choice and autonomy, and improve mood and self-concept. 5 benefits just from watching a magician perform a trick. The second is where I have the most experience, and this is the active approach. And in this approach, we actually teach people magic tricks based on a diagnosis, a physical and intellectual, developmental, or psychosocial diagnosis, and that's a therapeutic intervention. And this is where I get super excited, because you know, learning to perform a magic trick works in these 5 areas. It's about cognition. You have to be able to pay attention and focus, learn the steps, memorize, sequence them in the right order. It's about motor skills, being able to manipulate the props, both fine motor and gross motor. It's about communication, receptive communication while you're learning it, expressive communication when you get to perform it. And then it's about social skills, learning how to be a good audience member. And when you're learning a magic trick, and it doesn't always go the way you want it to, it's about frustration tolerance and self-regulation when things go wrong, right? And then lastly, it's about creativity or flexible thinking. So working in public education, I will say this is one of the things that bothers me the most. We teach our kids with disabilities by rote. They memorize everything. And then we graduate them and we turn them out into society, which is not a rote world. And we set them up for failure. We need to teach every one of our students, all of our students, critical thinking and problem-solving skills. And the best way to do that is through the arts. So all of these things have been studied. It's a wide range. They all have studied. We're continuing to study them. You were handed a little flyer when you came through the door, I believe. We just launched a study that, well, where is that? I'm showing a slide here that I'm not showing there. Sorry, this is where my ADHD just kind of goes, what's going on? I'm gonna find it, and then I'm gonna go back to it. All right, I guess not. So I'm just gonna go back. You guys are rolling with me, right? All right, keep rolling with me. All right, I'm just going to jump here. Good, all right. There's a second program that we have, and when it pops up, I'll talk about it. Second program, so the medical program is called Magic Therapy. When we do this in the schools, it's called Hocus Focus. I know, I would love to take credit for that. I can't, that's my wife. But it's Hocus Focus, and we use Hocus Focus, learning to perform that magic trick, because it does the same thing. We're working on bilateral coordination, sequencing, working memory, eye contact, turn-taking, self-regulation. But the social element of magic is what is so important, because the person wants to fool their family. They want to amaze their teacher. They want to get on FaceTime with their grandparents and say, hey, let me show you a magic trick, because it doesn't feel like therapy. Because it's magic. The therapeutic use of magic has been peer-reviewed. We've published about 15 studies in leading journals across the country, around the world. It's supported by the American Occupational Therapy Association, the American Physical Therapy Association, and was featured in the Journal of the American Medical Association. So what does that mean? It means insurance will cover magic therapy. That's what it means. Yeah. You can learn magic tricks, and your insurance will cover that. So the other half of that, yeah. The big thing about this is it's evidence-based, it's wonder-driven, it's human-centered. And those 3 things are important to me in that order. Evidence-based because the families in this room deserved interventions that have been studied. It's wonder-driven because it doesn't matter if you're not engaged, if you're not motivated, it doesn't matter how much research has gone into that, it's not going to make any difference. And it is human-driven because no protocol replaces the relationship that one human being has with another human being who cares deeply about who they are. So, in 2015, I produced this short documentary called Powerful Medicine, Simply Magic, and it features some individuals who use magic as a part of their therapy program and how it changed their life. I'm going to introduce you to one of these guys. His name is Tristan, and I'm going to just tell you really quickly about this cool study that we did. Tristan had cerebral palsy, hemiplegia. He was from rural London, rural England. He had never met another kid with cerebral palsy in his life. And he was a part of a magic camp program that we were doing. We were disguising 2 weeks of intensive therapy as magic tricks. So all these kids were coming in to learn magic tricks. Tristan walks in the room, jacket over his arm, covering up his affected hand, and he tells his mom, as soon as he walks in and he sees 13 other kids just like him, he walks in the room and he looks at his mom and he goes, "Mom, I'm not alone in the world." At the end of the first week, when his mother came to pick him up, he reached up with his affected hand and said, "Mom, I don't think you're going to have to take care of me for the rest of my life." So in this particular study, kids came in, they were using their affected hand 25% of the time in bimanual activities of daily living. At the end of 2 weeks, learning magic tricks where they had to use both hands, they were using their affected arm 93% of the time. And when we followed up with them 3 months later, they were still using it 87% of the time. I want to introduce you to Tristan. This is Tristan.
Why do you have a broken hand? They always say that. I don't have a broken hand, do I? It's just hemiplegia, isn't it? Welcome to the magic show. I am going to make the ball drop through the cup.
He had a very special magic pass. You saw him doing there. And he got nervous when we put the camera on him, and so he messed it up. And he's like, "No, I have to start over and get that magic pass right." It was his Harry Potter move. As a person learns to perform a magic trick, they voluntarily spend so much more time working to acquire a complex and sequential series of motor skills. In more traditional forms of therapy, they simply tolerate those activities rather than becoming fully engaged in them. But more importantly, by learning these simple little magic tricks, the skills they learn can be transferred into the activities they do every single day of their life. Putting on their pants, zipping up their jacket, opening a package of potato chips, all of the things that we take for granted. These are skills that can be developed. There's more research, there's a lot more research, there's a whole lot more stories, there's a whole lot more data. But can I just do a magic trick? Is that okay? All right. So I love this next trick because I love audiences like this. I love it when I get an audience that's a very family audience. I think it's probably because I come from a pretty cool family. I have a great mom and dad, a pretty awesome brothers and sister. I have one uncle who's a little kooky, but but we all have a kooky uncle, right? Yes? I'm sure in my family, I am the kooky uncle for somebody. And my kooky uncle lives down in New Orleans, where he operates one of the local pubs. At family reunions, he often tells the story of a time that a magician entered his establishment. And as the story goes, he performed one of the oldest saloon tricks in the book, using a bottle and a glass. It's called the bottle and the glass trick. Now, the idea is pretty simple. It's to make these two objects change places without touching them. So in other words, to get the glass to go from this side of the table to this side, and to get the bottle, oops, I seem to have packed too many bottles. And now I've totally messed this up. Yeah. You could just pretend you didn't see anything, right? We're friends enough like that, yes? All right. From the top, it's called the bottle and the glass trick. No. I need to explain. I got this trick ready really quickly this morning. When you travel as much as I do, and you travel with breakable objects like bottles and glasses, you have to pack extras in case something gets broken, right? So that's why we have the extra bottle. All right. All right, from the top. The idea is to make these two objects change places without touching them. That's why you have these two tubes, to keep you from touching them. But you know what? You don't have to touch them because it's magic. You just wave your hands, snap your fingers, and they change places. So that means the glass has jumped from this side of the table to this side, and the bottle has jumped from this side of the table to this side. Sweet. That's the easy part. The hard part is making them go back. Of course, it helps if the audience has consumed the contents of the bottle. Otherwise, you'd never believe me when I tell you it really is very easy to get these to change places. But it is a lot more difficult to make them go back. Now, here's what you have to remember. Tube number 1 must always go over the bottle. Tube number 2, too many bottles. Tube number 2 goes over the glass becomes a bottle, and the bottle becomes a glass. That's amazing, Kevin. How did you do that? Tube number 1 goes over the bottle. Tube number 2, too many bottles. Tube number 2 goes over the glass becomes a bottle, and the bottle becomes a glass. Now, you know what I heard? I heard if you get really good at this, you can do it just using just one tube, because the bottle and the glass don't actually change places at all. They just change. So in other words, the glass magically turns into a bottle, and the bottle magically turns into a glass. And they say it's all very easy to do, as long as you have an extra bottle hidden away. See? Glass becomes a bottle, bottle becomes a glass. As long as you have one of these, it does. Now, you know what else I heard? I heard it doesn't make any difference which tube you use, and why in the world would it, right? Too many bottles. Glass becomes a bottle, bottle becomes a glass, and you know the rest, right? Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Kevin, that's a pretty awesome trick, but you cheat. There's a whole lot of bottles. There's not. There's just one. I'm going to prove it. We're going to mark it. I'm going to take this little yellow silk and I'm going to tack it right around the neck of the bottle. That way, when you see that little yellow silk again, you will know that it is exactly the same bottle. And that's the easy part. The hard part is making them go back. But in order to do all of this, it really does help if you have 2 extra bottles. I know. People always come to me after show, and I need to learn that. I need to learn that trick. All right, let's see if I can get to my next slide. There we go. I think some people, especially those that work in science-based professions, have the wrong idea about magic. They think of it like a comic book, where a guy in a cave twirls his mustache, throws his hands, there's a giant puff of smoke, and something magical happens on the stage, which is why I love being here. No cape, no mustache, no smoke. Those of us who grew up in magic, we know what it's all about. It is the lure of knowing a secret, having a special talent, being able to attract an audience and tell a story and offer something exotic and interesting, like this little box. When I was growing up, Every magic trick looks sort of like this, a fancy painted box. And when we wanted to make it really special, really magical, we put dragons on the side. Or we paint Chinese characters all over it. Because as a kid who grew up in Mississippi, that meant this came from someplace far, far away. I wanted to show you all this little box because it reminds me of so many people I've come to know. People with autism, people with disabilities, people who've been placed inside the box by the people around them. The ones who don't quite fit in because as a society, we've already decided the size and the shape of the box so that everybody can fit so nice and neatly on the same size shelf. Of course, for all of us who love someone with a disability, we understand that problem. As long as we keep defining this box, only certain things will fit inside. Over the last few years, we've been changing that point of view. What exactly is the box? Who exactly is supposed to fit inside? Maybe we've had that backwards, twisted, upside down. Maybe it's not about the people at all, but our perspective that changes everything. Sometimes it takes something just that simple to get us to look at things in a completely different way. And maybe now you understand the appeal of magic and why people find these mysteries to be exotic and interesting. Special and magical. I have learned, thank you, I have learned to look beyond the box, to ignore the obvious container. And I've also learned that sometimes by teaching somebody just a few simple little magic tricks, we can break away the box that surrounds them, giving them an entirely new set of skills and understandings. And here's something that I want all of you to hear, the parents, the caregivers, the self-advocates, the individuals here. We have spent a very long time as a culture measuring people through a very narrow channel. Reading and writing a certain way, sitting in a chair a certain way, raising your hand in a classroom a certain way, answering questions on a timed test a certain way. And we've taken that very narrow channel and we've treated it as though it gives us a full picture of a person. And it doesn't. A person who can't put their thoughts on paper is sometimes assumed not to have thoughts. Not true. A person who needs to move in order to learn is labeled a problem instead of a learner. Somebody who processes information slowly is penalized for the very thing that makes their thinking valuable in the first place. But here's what I've watched happen over and over and over again when you give people a different doorway in. A person who can't write a paragraph can get up and perform a magic trick or a music or a dance in a way that lets us know they completely understand what it is that you've just taught them. A person who can't pass a vocabulary quiz can get up and use every word correctly in a story that they tell through a magic trick. A person who's been labeled as struggling reveals what their hands can do and tells us a way of thinking that nobody's ever measured before. So when I say break open the box, I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean that literally. The arts don't lower the bar. They give us a different doorway in. And every person in this room and the people that we love deserve a doorway big enough that we can move through. And that's what the arts do. Those of us in magic know that there's a process, a procedure for learning a magic trick. My friend and mentor was a great magician. You guys will not remember this guy. His name was Doug Henning. Doug had a very special formula for learning a new magic trick. And I think it speaks loudly to all of us because it applies to every skill that we learn. He would say this: the difficult must become habit. So when I'm learning a new magic trick, I work on the movements to that trick over and over and over and over again. Not to those smooth, just to when I can do them. Think about every other task that we do. Brushing your teeth. You memorize the steps. You do them in order, right? Putting your clothes on. You don't do them smooth all the time, but they become habit. You know what they're supposed to do. The difficult must become habit. Habit becomes beautiful. So now that you know the steps, now you work on them, you polish them, you refine them. I learn a magic trick, I get the moves down, and now I practice it over and over and over again so it's smooth. We do that with every task. And then the last thing there, beautiful, becomes magic. I get to put it in front of an audience and you guys get to go, what? But you know what? It's just as magical when you get up in the morning and you put on your shoes and your socks and your shirt and you walk out and you go, ta-da. The difficult must become habit. Habit becomes beautiful. Beautiful becomes magic. So, let's do a little bit of magic. For this one, I am going to need somebody to help me with this one, but I have a qualification on this one. So I need somebody who's pretty good with a pair of scissors. Oh man, I see lots of hands bouncing around. You know what? What's your name? Yeah, what's your name? Andrew? You're pretty good with a pair of scissors, Andrew? Yeah? How old are you? 9? You want to come on up? Come on up. Give Andrew a hand. Come on up, Andrew. You can come right here. Come on. All right, Andrew. Andrew, this is the point in the show where we cut somebody in half. I'm teasing. Come on over. You're pretty good with these? All right, I'm going to give you the scissors. And Andrew, I have here a piece of rope. Here's what we're going to do together. We're going to take this piece of rope and we're going to cut it into 2 equal pieces. Now, when I say 2 equal pieces, do I mean they're going to be different or they're going to be the same?
Same.
The same. That's exactly right. 2 equal pieces. We want these pieces of rope to be exactly the same size. Now, here's the thing, Andrew. The reason you're doing this is because every time I try to do it, I get it wrong. And they're not the same. And then the trick doesn't work. So they have to be the same size. All right? So we're going to go like this. We're going to find the middle of the rope right here. Good. Get those scissors ready. Give it a good cut. Nice job. I'm going to take these. You stay right there. We're going to drop these off. Good. All right, Andrew, now that we have... Dude.
I know how to fix it. You can just cut that.
Oh, that is a good idea. Andrew says he knows how to fix it. We can. Here's the bad thing. They're still not right, and I didn't even do that, but I'm the one that told you to cut there. So we could get the scissors and we could just cut it off. Or we could just start over. Should we just start over? Let's just do that. Let's start over again. We're just going to start over again. You stay right here. Let me get that pair of scissors because I tossed them back here. Oh, wait. I have a better idea. Let's do this. You hold the rope. We are going to play with the magic bag. Here's what I want you to do. Show everybody the rope. Good. Drop it in the bag. Now, Andrew, I want you to make a pair of scissors for me like this. Those pretty sharp? No. No. Sharpen them up real quick. Here. Are those pretty sharp? Maybe. Now?
Yeah.
Yes, all right. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to reach inside the bag and I'm going to pull out the rope. And I want you to take that super sharp pair of scissors and you're going to cut one time like this. All right? You ready? Let's give it this is practice. Ready? You try it. It's usually a little bit louder than that. That was pretty good. All right. Good. All right, keep those scissors. I'm going, and remember, when I say cut, you're going to cut right down here. Not up here, right down here. Okay, going for the rope. Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. Okay, cut. Again. 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 Last one. Good. Put those scissors away. Nice. Reach inside the bag and pull out the rope. There's more in there, Andrew. There you go. Those are pretty sharp scissors I think you've got there, buddy. All right, wait. We're not done. All right, let's count those. Hold them up one at a time. 1, drop it in the bag. 1, 2,
4, 5.
What's a good magic word? Let's all say abracadabra. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Reach inside the bag. Show everybody the rope. Ta-da! Andrew, take a bow. Nice job. You know what, Andrew? I am going to let you keep the rope. All right. Give Andrew a hand for helping us out. Good job, buddy. Thanks, man. So when you came in today, you got a book. That is my first children's book. It is the first in a series of 3, the Fantastic Four Magic Club. I just want to let you know that if you're looking to learn some magic tricks, if you look inside the book, as you read through the story, as the kids in the book learn a magic trick, you'll see a QR code inside the book. And if you scan that, it will take you to a video of me teaching you how to do the same trick that the kids in the book are learning in the book. So it'll be kind of fun. We all get to learn together. And then just one more thing. I mentioned that we're always studying. And you were handed a flyer when you came in on a Magic Camp training program. We are always, always, always doing research. If you know somebody, an adolescent on the autism spectrum, we are launching a study in about 2 weeks where we are investigating the benefits of using magic tricks to improve the social skills of adolescents on the autism spectrum. We did a pilot study on this last summer, and it was absolutely awesome. We're looking for a much, much larger group to do that. So if you know somebody, please take that flyer, take a picture of it, email it to them, text it to them. There's more in the back that you can grab as you leave. If you know somebody, or if you are that person that would love to learn a few magic tricks, please reach out to the contact information on that sheet. It's a fun project. And we launch it here in the United States in 2 weeks, and then in the fall we launch it in Malaysia and Hong Kong to do a cross-cultural sort of investigation of magic tricks. So it's a pretty cool project. I am not going to pretend that a magic trick is going to heal anybody or make anybody whole. That's not the purpose of what I'm talking about today. But I have watched a magic trick open a door for people that nothing else has. I have watched a child in a school who hasn't said a word the entire year laugh and go, wow, when a ball disappears in their hands. I've watched parents, teachers, and caregivers look at people in a completely different way. Magic allows us to focus on what we can do instead of what we can't do. So if anything I've said this morning has kind of stirred inside of you and you know somebody or a community, my website is right there, kevinspencerlive.com. Super easy. Take a picture of that. Reach out to me. Plant one small moment of wonder somewhere. You can reach out to me on my website. I want to thank you so much for allowing me to share a piece of my work with you. I really want to say thank you for allowing me to be here for the entire conference the last few days and kind of witness what you guys do in this amazing place. I want to say thank you to every one of you who do this every single day, mostly without getting thanked. And I want to thank you for reminding me every time I get to be in a room like this why I love my job so much. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you guys.
Don't run away so quick. We got to give you something. You can make these disappear if you want. So everybody here, at the end of every keynote, we remind you our tradition here in the disability community started by Justin Dart, the kind of the godfather of the ADA. When somebody did something amazing for disability rights, he sent them roses. So here to present our speaker, Dr. Spencer, with roses. Sarah, thank you. Now for his next trick, he's going to cut my credit card debt in half.
There you go.